Hebrews, Hebrews, Hebrews. This is Prophets of Awakening. This is Wednesday night. Let's reading through the Tanak segment, 26th of July, 2023. I'll be reading out of the book of First Ezra and breaking it down. Okay, you want to go to our YouTube channel, which is Prophets of Awakening. Check out our videos. It's a lot of information given, and the videos connect dots for you and lead you into the truth of the Holy Scriptures. If you like hearing and receiving, I'm asking you to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And for those that want to support the channel or feel a need to, you can look at our cash app at the bottom of the screen. Okay. Okay. This is a non-Messianic channel, and we deal with Tanak and the Torah. Tanak being the Old Testament. The Torah is the first 5 books of the Old Testament that was given to Moses, the books of the law. Shalom and welcome to Prophets of Awakening, and welcome to our reading through the Tanakh. We're going to do our normal, which is a moment of silence, prayer, psalms, do some current events, don't need to know information, and then we'll open it up for some questions and comments and dialogue. Then we'll go into our topic, which is the first book of Ezra. We'll read as much as we can. Okay. So this moment of silence is for the Lord of Hosts, our Redeemer, and Lord of Hosts, and Yahweh, the Creator. Oh Lord, we thank you for your great mercy and your great power and your wisdom. And we tarry, waiting for your powerful deliverance of your people Israel. We come this day, doubtless that you will appear and that you will gather your nation from among these wicked Gentiles. You said, oh Lord, that you would, through your prophet Isaiah, that you would help Abraham's seed, that you have scattered. You have completed that promise as of this day. You said, oh Lord, that you would remove the darkness from around us. Tarry not, oh Lord, for the latter days are here, and we are waiting and watching for you, oh Lord. Peace be unto you. Okay. So with that being said, I read the song. Okay. Okay. I'll read Psalm 69. It's a cry for distress, and it's a Psalm of David. It says, "Save me, O God, for the waters are come in unto my soul. I sink in deep mire. Where there is nothing standing, I come into deep waters, for the floods overflow me. I am weary of my crying, my throat is dry, mine eyes fail while I wait for my God. They that hate me without cause are more than the hairs of my head. They that would destroy me, being mine enemies, wrongfully or mighty. Then I restored that which I took not away. O God, thou knowest my foolishness, and my sins are not hid from thee. Let not them that wait on thee, O Lord of hosts, be ashamed for my sake. Let not those that seek thee be confounded for my sake, O God of Israel, because for thy sake I have borne reproach. Shame hath covered my face. I am become a stranger unto my brethren, and an alien unto my mother's children. For the zeal of thine house hath eaten me up, and the reproach of them that approach thee are fallen upon me. And I weep and chasten my soul with fasting. That was to my reproach. I made sackcloth also my garment, and I became a proverb to them. They that sit in the gate spake against me. I was the song of the drunkards. But as for me, my prayer is unto thee, O Lord, in an acceptable time, O God. In the multitude of thy mercies, hear me. In the truth of thy salvation, deliver me out of mere, and let me not sink. Let me be delivered from them that hate me, and out of the deep waters. Let not the water flood overflow me, neither let the deep swallow me up, and let not the pit shut her mouth upon me. Hear me, O Lord, and thy loving kindness is good. Turn unto me according to the multitude of thy tender mercies. Hide not thy face from thy servant, for I am in trouble. Hear me speedily. Draw nigh unto my soul, and redeem it. Deliver me because of my enemies. Thou hast known my reproach, and my shame, and my dishonor. My adversaries are all before thee. Reproach have broken my heart, and I am full of heaviness. And I looked for some to take pity, but there was none, and for comfort, but I found none. They gave me also gall for meat, and in my thirst they gave me vinegar to drink. Let their table become a snare before them, and that which should have been for their welfare, let it be for a trap. Let their eyes be darkened, that they see not, and make their loins continually to shake. Pour out thy indignation upon them, and let thy wrathful anger take hold of them. Let their habitation be desolate, and let none dwell in their tents. For they persecute him whom thou hast smitten, and they talk to the grief of those whom thou hast wounded. Add iniquity unto their iniquity, and let them not come into their righteousness. Let them be blotted out of the book of living, and not be written with righteousness. But I am poor and sorrowful. Let thy salvation, O God, set me up on high. I will praise the name of God with a song, and will magnify him with thanksgiving. This also shall please the Lord better than all ox or bullocks, that have horns and hoofs. The humble shall see this and be glad, and your heart shall live that seek God. For the Lord heareth the poor, and despiseth not his prisoners. Let the heavens and the earth praise him, the seas and everything that moveth therein. For God will save Zion, and will build the cities of Judah, that they may dwell there and have in possession. The seed also of his servants shall inherit it, and they that love his name shall dwell therein. Okay, that was Psalm 69. It's a cry for distress, and it's a Psalm of David. Any comments on that? Okay, we see right here in 36, the last verse, it says, uh, this is of a surety. We know this is going to happen. For God will save Zion, and he will build the cities of Judah, that they may dwell there and have it in possession. The seed also of his servants shall inherit it, and they that love his name shall dwell therein. So we know that's going to happen. But one of the things another thing I want to shine light on was, which we'll come across it when I started reading out of First Ezra, and it's identifying, like I said, every chance I get, it's identifying who the suffering servant is. It says, so it says right here, it says the enemies of Israel says that David tell them in 25, let their habitation, these the enemies, be desolate, and let none dwell there in their tents. In 26, for they persecute him, it's the him in Isaiah 53, they persecute him whom thou hast smitten. They go to smitten, and they talk to the grief of those whom thou hast wounded. See that? 27, add iniquity unto their iniquity, and let them not come into thy righteousness. So we see right here. It's over and over again. When you rightly divide the scriptures and thinking like Hebrew, you can see who the self-serving is. And you also can see the number that they did to us through the lies of the New Testament. Okay, so with that being said, yeah, anybody have any comments? Okay, we'll go to some current events. Okay. Okay, give me a minute.
It's about the FDIC. It's about Bank of America, and I think it is very, very important. And the reason why is because we're in a moment of time where I've said this before. You just saw the first wave of the banking collapse this first quarter of the year. I said there's going to be a calm before the storm, and then we're going to see it pick up in the fall. Now, today we're going to talk about FDIC and Bank of America, but was it PacWest? I talked to you guys about this probably 4 months ago. PacWest was having issues, and they have now succumbed, obviously pending shareholder vote, to be bought out by Bank of California. Now these consolidations are going to continue happening, and was it PacWest was around the 50th or 54th largest bank in the country. Bank of California is like the 154th largest bank in the country. And what people need to realize is that this consolidation actually is, well, it's always bad, but just because a bank like Bank of California is taking over PacWest, it doesn't mean that Bank of California is strong. A lot of these banks have very serious leverage in the real estate space, not only
I'm Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I was diagnosed.
Coming out that the FDIC, and this is one headline out of Wall Street Journal, FDIC scolds banks from deposit data. The banks have been failing for years. There's a leaked video from the FDIC. I don't know if you guys have seen it. I'll try and grab it for another video later today or tomorrow. And what it is they are talking back in November, a private meeting, the FDIC boardroom, and they're talking about how they need to keep the truth, the facts of the banking system collapse out of the public side. They do not want the public knowing, and they literally said, and I quote, if they knew this, they would panic, and that's not what we want. The Federal Reserve came out with information this last spring after the banks, the first 4 banks that failed in the springtime. Yeah, we got contacted by around 723 banks in September that said that they were failing, and they never said anything to you. And this kind of stuff goes widely unreported. I talked about it, and I've been pleading with people like, you need to diversify. You need to understand, because there will be a point when the entire banking system falls, collapses. And what blows me away is that people just don't believe that it can happen. Am I saying it's going to happen tomorrow? No, but it will. And there's only so much insurance out there that the government has set up. And if the government was to completely backstop all of the deposits, because like you saw in the news, when these banks started to fail last spring, they just came out and said most of these accounts are uninsurable. We don't insure these. But the government, the White House came out and said, hey, we're gonna take care of it. Okay, we're just gonna make it work. Shortly thereafter, the FDIC said, we're broke, we're insolvent, and we need some help. So what they did is they started to raise fees, the insurance fees that banks have to pay to be insured by FDIC, and they raised them on the big banks. And they said they wouldn't do it on the small ones. Why? Because the small ones are collapsing. They cannot physically afford, they do not have the margins to afford the insurance. And this is literally being told to you straightforward, right out in the open. So what are some things you can do immediately if you have money accounts that are uninsured and you want to insure? Make sure that your accounts are insured. Also have the proper amounts there. Don't have over $250,000 in one insured bank account. Just that's it. Because there's a day when this collapse happens. And I'm telling you what, God's been warning about this through his prophets for like 12 years. So I don't know when it's going to happen. Do I believe it's coming sooner than later? Absolutely. Do I believe you're going to see the beginning, the throes of it later this year? No. You want to know why? Because it's already started. It already started. It's going to get worse this fall. It already started this spring. And so as I go through this story, please think about, and we're going to talk about FDIC and we're going to talk about Bank of America. And I believe where there's smoke, there's fire. And I believe it's almost like it's prophetic that Bank of America, simply by its name, as America falls, that Bank of America will fall. All right? And just check this out. First story I'm going to go over.
Yeah, so Bank of America behind it. And, remember what I was telling you about the weird artwork they got in the Bank of America in the main bank on the wall, the red-haired guy and all that stuff. The same, it's in Denver, Colorado. So Bank of America behind it, which is tied to these Edomites, these Illuminati bankers.
U.S. FDIC presses banks to fix, quote, inaccurate statements as new fee loans. It says here, the U.S. Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, or FDIC, on Monday told banks to fix financial statements that incorrectly reduced uninsured deposits. Restatements that preceded a proposal special fee tied to the size of those deposits. All right. Why would a bank want to improperly, and I'm telling you, this is not a mistake. This was done on purpose. And it's not just Bank of America. However, Bank of America is one of the largest that did this, okay? Why would a bank want to incorrectly reduce uninsured deposits? Think about this. They don't want you knowing how at risk your funds are, and they don't want you knowing how at risk the bank is. Why? You simply wouldn't use them. Now, Bank of America just got fined for 3 different violations, and that's not including this one, okay? So I'm going to go over that too. So I'm telling you, where there's smoke, there's fire. The warning and revisions came as banks have complained about a fee the FDIC plans to impose, mainly on large firms, to recover its losses from the failures of Silicon Valley Bank and others. The banks could owe billions of dollars. That special fee, which the FDIC proposed in May, would be assessed based on their uninsured deposits at the end of 2022. So the Bank of America is straight up lying. Oh, you mean you wanted all the information? Because they don't want to pay the insurance. So think about this. They're literally lying to the FDIC to get away with being able to pay less on their insurance premium, so that when you turn around and the bank fails and you go, oh, I want my account insured, I want my money, Bank of America goes, and the FDIC says, sorry, your account's not insured. Bank of America didn't even say pretty much your money existed. Think about how massive that is. If that isn't a clarion call to pull your money out of Bank of America, I don't know what is. I don't know what is. We're going to get into more reasons. That's
okay. Any comments on that?
No, sir. No comments.
Okay, I got some need to know information right here.
Welcome back to the channel. Well, things are heating up, family. They are really heating up. Apparently, the water temperatures off of Florida may have broken a world record. Now, they say the earth itself is heating up, which is very much in line with biblical prophecy. But you know how it is when you think you can go to the water to kind of cool off? So what happens if the water is just as hot as it is outside? That tells you that something is definitely going on. Let's get into this story. Let's see what's going on down in Florida, down in the waters of Florida. It says water temperatures off of Florida may have broken world records. It says a sweltering summer that has shattered heat records worldwide and in Florida continued this week when a buoy station off the Florida Keys recorded a water temperature that is confirmed would set the record for the warmest seawater temperature ever recorded on the planet. It says the buoy in Matinee Bay, a largely enclosed body of water north of Key Largo, captured a stunning 101.1 degrees Fahrenheit reading at 5 feet deep Monday night. That's Monday night, y'all. According to preliminary data from the National Data Buoy Center. That would beat the previous record of 99.7 degrees, which was recorded in Kuwait Bay in the Persian Gulf in 2020. So things are heating up worldwide, y'all. Worldwide, not just here in America, down in Florida, but worldwide. It says if you climbed in the water there, I'm pretty darn sure it would have felt like you're in a hot tub, said Jeff Masters, a hurricane scientist formerly with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. The waters in the area have warmed so much because calm wind and wave conditions have created perfect conditions for warm, shallow water to move more slowly and heat up under the hot sun. And the coral bleaching crisis in the Florida Keys elevated to new heights this week when the prolonged hot water prompted an emergency harvest of more than 1,500 corals from offshore nurseries. Wow. It says researchers are now sheltering the corals in temperature-controlled tanks at the Keys Marine Laboratory on Long Key, where they could remain for months. It says at least 11 other buoys measuring water temperatures around Everglades National Park logged temperatures higher than 96 degrees Monday. On Sunday, the same Matinee Bay buoy recorded a sweltering 100.2 degrees. Master said these surrounding measurements show that the reading should be taken seriously, though it's still uncertain what the exact water temperature might be or might have been Monday night. Maybe not 101, maybe only 99, he said. I think it was probably at least 99 in that water. There's some nuance with the measurement. Matinee Bay can have a lot of floating organic material, which could potentially impact the reading's accuracy. So unless there's photo proof that there wasn't debris around the buoy, the record would be hard to verify. So that would be number one question, he said. Was there a lot of seagrass present that was absorbing a lot of sunlight, skewing the reading? But Master said we may never get an official confirmation. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration doesn't keep official water temperature records, he said. Brian McNulty, a senior research associate at the University of Miami, said, this is because there is no agreement among researchers on the uniform method to measure temperatures or at what depth they should be recorded.
Okay. Anybody heard anything about that? Any comments?
Shalom. No, sir, I haven't heard about it, but I know how hot it is. They was talking about the heat in Miami a couple of weeks ago, but they never mentioned the water. So I guess it's gotten to the water now.
Yeah,
Shalom.
go ahead.
Yes, sir. They were saying that down there, the temperature running about 101 degrees, and it is affecting the coral reefs down there, which will affect the aquatic life. So, yes, yes.
Okay, yeah. So that if it's true, then you know what that means about hurricanes. Also, yeah. Okay, so we at the Q&A. Anybody have anything they want to bring in about any questions or comments or answers about anything you heard on Prophets of Awakening or something that
Yes,
come up?
sir. Yes, sir. I'm hearing the current event about Bank of America, and he was saying that's a sign to move your money. But I guess if you move it one place, the situation might eventually follow where you move it at.
All right, yeah, I would say take it out altogether. Yeah, I say take it out altogether
But put it where?
in your house.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Okay, okay.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions or comments about anything before we go into the well, I have something I want to play right here. I've been showing over and over again how they all these countries and especially the BRICS countries they got a concerted effort to bring down America. And so and this is another example right here. They're dealing with these chips. Check it out. Okay, yeah, they do this in Twitter. The U.S. says it will attack China if China attacks Taiwan. But what if we tell you China has removed the batteries from U.S.'s rockets and they can't attack China? In simple words, China has put chip materials export restrictions on the U.S. These materials are used in making military equipment, and without them, nukes can't move. The chip materials bans on the U.S. will act as a huge attack on the U.S. tech, and the U.S. might take months or years to recover. The experts are saying Chinese restrictions are the result of the U.S. own actions. But what did the U.S. do? Let's find out. Welcome back to another exciting episode of our channel. Innovation Diary brings you China's innovation stories, projects, and growing influence in different parts of the world. If you are new to the channel and enjoy learning about fast-paced modernity, especially China's development and growing power, you will find our videos intriguing. In this video, we will discuss the impact of chip materials restrictions on the U.S. We will also talk about how the U.S. is the reason behind China's actions. Watch the video till the very end to know what the U.S. can do in its defense. Let's get started. To experts, the news of China restricting the chip material export didn't come as a surprise. But for the U.S., it was a shock. The U.S. was not expecting China to do anything like that. The U.S. thought that extreme actions can only be taken by the U.S. They underestimated the power of China. But China attacked right on point.
Are you tired of feeling self-conscious about your teeth due to discoloration?
As the chairman of the Global Mining Association of China, Peter Arkell, mentioned, China has hit the American trade restriction where it hurts. For the U.S., the restriction came out as something they were not ready for. The restriction was announced on the 5th of July, or surfaced in the media on the 5th of July. But after more than 10 days, the U.S. has not been able to do anything at all. Did they give any response to the announcement? Not yet. The restrictions were proposed just a day before Yellen visited China. She also had nothing to say about it. Of course, she was not ready to answer questions related to Chinese action because no one knew how damaging the decision would be for the U.S. After many days have passed, the U.S. has said nothing. But why aren't we hearing anything from the officials that always make sure to share their stance about literally everything? The scope of damage was predictable, and the U.S. knew that if China became aggressive, the decisions it would take would make the U.S. pay. But desperate to do something against China, the U.S. itself made China so aggressive that it took such a decision that could cease the U.S. chip materials trade. So, the questions that arise now are how the U.S. is responsible for China's action of restricting the chip materials export. Also,
What would be the result of these restrictions, and how will the U.S. find a way out? Before we continue further, tell us, are you loving the video? If yes, please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel for more videos about China's development, power, and influence on the world. Let's continue now. The U.S. has failed to maintain power. Before questioning why China has put export restrictions on the U.S., it is necessary to ask why the U.S. took steps that make China angry. The U.S. attack on China's technological sectors is nothing new. It has been attacking all Chinese sectors that can make China the new center of global power. But let's just not forget this is the war of economy. A country with a prosperous economy and cutting-edge technology can win over anyone, even the U.S. This tech and economy war is very different from the war fought in ancient times. The old wars were the war of power. The armies used to fight and attack each other to win. But to win the tech war and the economy war, one does not need to attack other countries. Rather, they need to make themselves so strong and unattackable. But unfortunately, the U.S. didn't forget its old tactics to fight. The U.S. started putting sanctions on China instead of working on itself. So on one hand, China was working on the Belt and Road Initiative, making its space stations, reaching its maximum chip-making capacity, and connecting the world through BRICS. The U.S. was supporting Ukraine with money and weapons, and was putting sanctions on a list of countries. The directions in which efforts are made make it clear who's on the right path. Anyhow, this continued for a very long time. The U.S. has put brutal sanctions on China. It has stopped nations from selling their chips and chip equipment to China. And not only that, but it also pressured China's largest traders. But here we are. China is still making the chips and is still the largest chip exporter. It still is connected to all the nations, and even Europe looks forward to getting into a better relationship with China. So what has the U.S. achieved? If anything, the U.S. only achieved China's anger. It has successfully made China aggressive. And finally, China also accepted the U.S. challenge. The U.S. was passing more and more sanctions, and China was only finding ways to remain unshakable, which it successfully did. But it also finally decided to give the U.S. the taste of its own medicine. Firstly, China banned Micron. We all have witnessed how early Micron wanted to work in China again because China is a large market. The U.S. called this action a brutal act against its tech, forgetting what it has been doing to China. But now China has gotten even more serious about the restriction and has finally put chip minerals restriction. The minerals are gallium and germanium. For those who don't know, these minerals are used in making chips used in automobiles, devices, and even military jets. China putting restrictions on the export would mean the U.S. would no longer be able to get these minerals. And while the U.S. is planning to attack China, as they mentioned saying, if China will attack Taiwan, they will attack China. China is removing the chips from its military jets. The military will not be able to attack China without these minerals for sure. But how will the U.S. be able to find any way out of these restrictions? Or will they even be able to make chips without these Chinese raw materials? China is the largest raw materials export. It is an important member of the supply chain. China can control the entire trade of gallium and germanium. The U.S. will not be able to find the same amount of raw materials from any other country. The minerals are required in making essential items from daily use devices to automobiles.
Okay. Any comments on that? So, like I said, it's getting real ugly. So, we see right here what happened when China came back and gave America a taste of their own medicine, but China came back with something else. Right here. I'm going to check this video out.
China and Japan is getting worse, and Beijing is responding. Japan has begun implementing new measures to impose restrictions on chip trade with China, in line with US measures aimed at restricting chip technology access to the Chinese. Japan's decision to join the United States and the Netherlands in restricting exports of chip-making equipment to China gives the Allies new weapons in the escalating technology war. China said it was extremely dissatisfied with Japan's export restrictions on chip-making tools, which have already taken effect, and described the measures as clearly directed against Beijing. Harms economic relations. China urges Japan to bear in mind the overall interests and long-term interests of economic and trade cooperation between the two countries, and refrain from abusing export control measures, said Chinese Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Mao Ning at a press conference. Last Sunday, Japan began implementing new measures to impose restrictions on chip trade with Beijing, in parallel with US measures aimed at restricting the access of chip technology to the world's second largest economy. Restrictions on 23 items. According to the Japanese newspaper Nikkei Asia, the export control list includes 23 new items, which will make it difficult for Beijing to import this advanced equipment used in the manufacture of high-tech chips. Japan's move to restrict access to chip-making tools came after America tightened controls on exports to China last October, with a focus on chips used in supercomputers and artificial intelligence, which have potential military applications. American pressure. Washington called on the Netherlands and Japan, two of the world's largest suppliers of semiconductor manufacturing equipment, to take steps similar to the one it took towards Beijing, as the new restrictions in the Netherlands are due to take effect in September. Dutch optical imaging systems maker ASML is the largest player in the market for EUV machines for printing the most complex on-chips using various DUV systems, while Japan is home to leading chip-making suppliers such as Tokyo Electron and Screen Holdings.
Okay, so as you can see that the war already started. China and Russia already, China and America already at war. The average person don't even know it. It's already, this chip thing is major. I think it's tied to what happened in Silicon Valley with the bank. But yeah, they already at war. Any comments?
Shalom. I just want to pose a question. The lithium that's in Ukraine, and I believe that's why Russia wants a uh, part of that land because of that. And does that lithium also helps making the chip?
Yeah, it's tied to those. It's tied to that whole chip making processes. That lithium is part of it, and those other two minerals they mentioned. Again, I can't think of say the name of them, but yeah, all that plays a major part in making chips, which, like you said, is tied to the AI and the automotive industry, is tied to the military, to the rockets and all that. So it's like that's the main thing. So they already uh, throwing blows back and forth with each other already. And the average person don't even know it. Okay. Yeah. So with that being said, nobody else have any more questions. I'm be reading out of first Ezra in the Apocrypha. I'm gonna read some chapters out of that. It's the first book of Ezra. Okay. So let me get it. Okay, so it's the first book of Ezra, chapter 1, verse 1. It says, when Josiah celebrated the Passover festival in Jerusalem to his Lord, he sacrificed the Passover on the 14th day of the first month, placing the priests in their divisions. I'm in the Apocrypha, right? You know what that is. And like I said, I'm reading out first book of Ezra. It says, when he sacrificed the Passover on the 14th day of the first month, placing the priests. Check this out. I said that I was going to bring this up. It's tied to the Isaiah 53, who the servant is, right? He sacrificed. It says he sacrificed the Passover on his 14th day of the first month, placing the priest in their divisions, clad in their vestments in the temple of the Lord. And he ordered the Levites, look at this, he ordered the Levites, the temple slaves of Israel. So these are long before they came over here on the transatlantic slave trade and became slaves. They was already slaves because of who they are. He took them from among the 11 tribes, and they bound to him, to the Lord of hosts, and bound to heaven, in the laws and the statutes, in the temple and the sacrifices. They are already slaves. So it says, so this is something servant right here. The temple slaves of Israel to consecrate themselves to the Lord. See that? And when they put the holy chest of the Lord in the house of the Lord, which Solomon the king, son of David, had built, he said, you will have to carry it on your shoulders. You won't have to carry it on your shoulders anymore. So now worship the Lord your God and serve his people Israel, and prepare yourselves by your families and kindred, as David, king of Israel, wrote, and with all the magnificence of Solomon his son, and take your places in the temple according to your ancestral groups as Levites before your brothers, the Israelites. So notice they separate from the Israelites. The Levites separate from the Israelites. The 11 tribes is Israelites. So he says, according to your ancestral groups as Levites before your brothers, the Israelites. It says, in proper order, and sacrifice the Passover, and get the sacrifices ready for your brothers, and observe the Passover in accordance with the Lord's command, which was given to Moses. And Josiah gave the people, that were present 30,000 lambs and kids and 3,000 calves. These were given out of the king's revenue, as he promised to the people and to the priests and the Levites, and Hilkiah and Zechariah and Joel, the rulers of the temple, gave the priests for the Passover 2,600 sheep and 300 calves, and Jeconiah and Shema and Nathan his brother and Ashbaiah and I'm butchering his name, Okael and Joram, colonels of the regiments, gave the Levites for Passover 5,000 sheep and 700 calves, and it was done. And the priests and the Levites with the unleavened bread stood in their proper order, according to their kindred and their family divisions, before the people to make the offering of the Lord, as it is prescribed in the book of Moses, as they did in the morning. They roasted the Passover with fire in the proper way, and and spoiled the sacrifice in the and boiled the sacrifice in the cauldrons and the basins with savory odors, and set them before all the people. Afterwards, they prepared some for themselves and their brethren the priests, and the sons of Aaron, for the sons were offering the fat unto the lake. So the Levites prepared meat for themselves and for their brothers, the priests, and the sons of Aaron, and in the sacrifice and the sacred musicians. See that right here? This is where you get Motown from right here. The sacred musicians to the sons of Asaph were in their places according to the regulation of the David, and with Asaph and Zechariah and Ednas, who were of the king's circle, and the doorkeeper stood at each door. No one needed to interpret his duties for the day, for their brothers, the Levites, prepared meat for them. So the things that had to do with the Lord's sacrifice was carried out that day in celebrating the Passover and offering the sacrifices on the altar of the Lord, as King Josiah commanded. So I'm gonna stop right there for a minute. Anybody know who Josiah is? Familiar with Josiah? Okay, nobody familiar with Josiah? Let me give you a reminder who he is. I mean, King James in 2 Kings. So Josiah gave the last Passover. Matter of fact, he gave the greatest Passover ever given in Israel by a king. He is even greater than the one that Solomon gave. Let's look at it. So it says, okay, let me read it right quick. Okay, so it says right here, I'm in chapter 2 Chronicles 34, verse 1. Josiah was 8 years old when he began. This is how young he was. So Josiah was 8 years old when he began to reign. And he reigned in Jerusalem 30 years. And he did that which was right in the sight of the Lord. And he walked in the ways of David. So he's just like David and Solomon and his David and his father, and declined neither to the right hand nor to the left. For in the 8 years of his reign, while he was yet young, he began to seek after the God of David, his father. And in the 12th year, he began to purge Judah and Jerusalem from the high places. We dealt with the high places last night. I told you what they was. The high places and the groves. Told you what they were. And carved images and the molten images. And they break down the altars of Balaam. We dealt with that last night in his presence. And the images that were on the high above them, he cut down. And the groves and the carved images. Okay, and the 34, 2 Chronicles 34 and 4. And they broke down the altars of Balaam in his presence, and the images that were on high above them. He cut down the groves and carved images and the molten images, and he break in pieces and made dust of them and strewed it upon the graves of them that had sacrificed unto them. And he burnt. So just look at this right here. So you see what he done? So go back to Ezekiel 37. When the Most High raised up the house of Israel, these people right here ain't gonna be raised up. Right here, he says, right? So he told them in Ezekiel 37, he says, you're gonna know who I am when I open up your graves and bring you up out of your graves. So right here it says Josiah, and they break down verse 4, 2 Chronicles 34 and 4, and they break down the altars of Balaam in his presence and the images that were on high above them, and cut down the groves and carved images and the molten image, and he break them in pieces and made dust of them. So he burned all of it, made ashes, and he strewed it upon the graves of them that had sacrificed unto them. So ain't gonna be no raised resurrection of them, right? 5, and he burnt the bones. See that? These bones ain't gonna be there in Ezekiel 37. It's only the bones of the righteous. So it says, and he burnt the bones of the priests upon their altars, and he cleansed Judah and Jerusalem, right? So did he in the cities of Manasseh, Ephraim, and Simeon, and unto Naphtali, and with their mattocks round about. And when he had broken down the altars and the groves, and had beaten the graven images into powder, and cut down all the idols throughout all the land of Israel, he returned to Jerusalem. So this Josiah right here. And so he was the last righteous king before Nebuchadnezzar came. And right after Josiah died, his sons came on the throne. That's why they're not on the throne that long. Let's look at it right quick. We'll get back to it. We'll go back to where we said. So, I mean, because a lot of people don't know this stuff, so I'm just showing, breaking it down. So, if you go back, and you'll see in 2 Chronicles, right, at the end. So, the Most High, he's told Daniel that his indignation was going to come to an end, right? So he's tired of dealing with them because they up and down. So Josiah came on the scene, he did that which was right, pleased the Lord. Okay. And then not only that, Josiah was a king when they had done away with the book. They weren't even dealing with the book of the law, which is, I just mentioned, the Torah, Tanak. They ain't even dealing with it. Right here it says in 34 and 14, and when they brought out the money that was brought in into the house of the Lord, Hilkiah the priest found a book of the law. That's the first 5 books of the law given by Moses. And Hilkiah answered and said unto Stephan the scribe, I have found the book of the law in the house of the Lord. And Hilkiah delivered the book to Stephan. So that means they weren't doing it. This is the 490 years that's in the book of Daniel. They weren't even referencing the law. The book was there. They had throw the book away down in the bottom of the temple. So Josiah came back and he brought all his reform, right? Then Josiah died. In 2 Chronicles 35, starting at verse 20. And all this, when Josiah had prepared the temple, Necho, after he had did all the sacrifice, cleansing of the temple, Necho, king of Egypt, came up to fight against Carmel by the Euphrates, and Josiah went out against him. And he sent his ambassadors to him, saying, what have I to do with thee, thou, O king of Judah? I come not against thee this day, but against the house wherewith I have war. For God commanded me, this Lord of hosts, commanded me to make haste, to bear thee from meddling with God, who is with me, that he destroy thee not. Nevertheless, Josiah would not turn his face from him, but disguise himself that he might fight with him, and hearken not unto the words of Necho from the mouth of God. He came to fight in the valley of Megiddo. And the archers shot at King Josiah, and the king said to his servants, have me away, for I am wounded. So they killed him. He got killed right here. So when after he died, this is when Nebuchadnezzar came. And then you notice in chapter 36, it says the reign of and dethronement of Jehoahaz. So this is the son. And then the people of the land took Jehoahaz, the son of Josiah, made him king in the father's stead in Jerusalem. And Josiah was 20 and 3 years old when he began to reign. And he reigned 3 months. See that? Mosiah ain't playing with him. And then he wasn't there but 3 months. And the king of Egypt put him down at Jerusalem and condemned the land in 100 talents of silver and right. So he wasn't there for 3 months. Then we go to verse 5. Jehoiakim was 20 and 5 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem, and he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord. Against him came up Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and bound him in feathers and carried him to Babylon. And Nebuchadnezzar also carried of the vessel. So this is the first time Nebuchadnezzar came, right? And then it says in verse 9, Jehoiakim was 8 years old when he began to reign. All these boys right here tied to Josiah. And Jehoiakim was 8 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 3 months, 10 days. See that? 3 months and 10 days in Jerusalem. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord. And when the year was expired, King Nebuchadnezzar sent and brought him to Babylon with the goodly vessels of the house of the Lord, and made Zedekiah, his brother, king over Judah and Jerusalem. And so Zedekiah is Josiah's brother. He's not his son. So when you understand the Lord of hosts is watching over David's lineage, it's a succession. So right here, Zedekiah ain't even legitimate. Mosiah done cut it off. People don't understand this, but he didn't cut it off. Zedekiah ain't none of the son. He ain't no kin to. He's not he's not a seed royal. He's not from the seed of Josiah. And that's what I was telling you when he says a breach. So you go right back. Let's go right back right quick. Yeah, we go back to the Apocrypha. First Ezra. So if you go to 9 and 6, this killed this story right here. Well, they killed the understanding they want to try to give you chapter 9 of Isaiah, verse 6. See that? For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given. Government. That's what's going on. It has nothing whatsoever to do with Jesus. But they take you to this verse right here that says Jesus. But it says, unto us a child is born, and a son is given. So we see what the Most High doing, right? Let's keep going. A son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder. His name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and peace, there shall be no end upon the throne of David. So notice when we first started reading in First Ezra, Josiah doing everything according to what David said, because it's David's throne. All these boys, his sons out of his lineage, just sitting on his throne, but it's David's throne, and he's gonna bring David back. We don't need we ain't need no Messiah to come. David the Messiah. So he says, verse 7, of the increase of the government, peace, there shall be no end upon the throne of David and upon his kingdom, to order it and to establish it with judgment and with justice from henceforth, even and forever. So here, right here, what I'm trying to explain. The zeal of the Lord of hosts shall perform it. So we see the zeal of the Lord of hosts right here. He killing all these boys. 3 months. They ain't on there but 3 months, and he bringing these kings to come knock them off. And then finally he gets Nebuchadnezzar to put Zedekiah on the throne. He threw his indignation and came to a fool. So when you understand the story, Zedekiah the one that burned the scroll that Daniel sent him, telling him what was going to happen. He the one burnt the scroll. So when you understand what's going on, you should expect that, because he ain't legitimate. It's a breach in Israel right here when he put Zedekiah up there. Nebuchadnezzar chosen, not the Lord of hosts. Our Lord of hosts, the one is dealing with David's throne. David then passed. Okay, so let's go back. I just want to explain that who Josiah is, because it's not another Josiah in First Ezra, the same Josiah. So let me get back where I was at. Okay, so it says, let me see. I'll start at verse 19. It says, so the Israelites who were present at the time observed the Passover and the festival of unleavened bread in 7 days. No such Passover here we go right here. No such Passover had been celebrated in Israel since the time of the prophet Samuel. And none of the kings of Israel had celebrated such a Passover as Josiah, and the priests and the Levites and the Jews celebrated with all the Israelites that were present in their dwellings in Jerusalem. It was in the 18th year of the reign of Josiah that this Passover was observed. And it's the last one, right for a righteous king. It says, and the doings of Josiah were upright in the Lord's sight, for his heart was full of piety. And the events of his times have been recorded in the past about those who sinned and acted wickedly toward the Lord, beyond any other nation or kingdom, and how they grieved him kingly, so that the words of the Lord rose up and condemned Israel. After all these doings of Josiah, it happened. We just read this in King James. After these doings of Josiah, it happened that Pharaoh, king of Egypt, came to make war with Carchemish on the Euphrates. Josiah went out to encounter him, and the king of Egypt sent word to him, saying, what do you want of me, king of Judah? I was not sent against you by the Lord God. So Lord host sent him. And this is what I'm telling you right here. They talking to him. They ain't nobody on they on no walkie-talkie or no cell phone. He appealing to them. And he just told Josiah right here. This is what got Josiah killed. It says, what do you want, king of Judah? I was not sent against you by the Lord of hosts. For my war is on the Euphrates, and now the Lord is with me. The Lord is with me, urging me on. See that? Depart and do not oppose the Lord. But Josiah would not turn back to his chariot, but tried to fight with him, disregarding the words of Jeremiah. See that? Jeremiah had also told him, and he snuck off anyway and went to try to deal with this guy. And he said, Jeremiah the prophet. So this right here is a sign that they're tampering with the scriptures, because we don't say that in the scriptures nowhere, that he had a conversation with Jeremiah. He said, disregarding the words of Jeremiah the prophet, spoken by the mouth of the Lord, and joined in battle with him in the plains of Megiddo. And the leaders fought against King Josiah. And the king said to his servants, take me away from battle, for I am very sick. And the servants immediately took him out of the fray. And he got into his second chariot and was taken back to Jerusalem. And he departed this life and was buried in the tomb of his forefathers. And they grieved for Josiah all over Judah. And Jeremiah the prophet lamented for Josiah. And the principal men with the women mourned him to this day. And it was ordained that this should always be done throughout all the nations of Israel. This is recorded in the scrolls of the histories of the king of Judah, and every one of the deeds of Josiah, and his splendor, and his understanding of the law of the Lord, that what he had done before, and these present deeds are told in the scrolls of the kings of Israel and Judah. So let's look at that. So what I just read is right here, but people are not understanding what it is. It's in Zechariah, right quick. Let's go to Zechariah. So this in order for you to connect the dots, have a better understanding what's going on. Zechariah. So it says, Zechariah chapter 12, right? I'm in Zechariah chapter 12. It says 14. My bad. Let me see if I'm in the right place. Yeah, I was in 12. My bad. Chapter 12. It says this is a prophecy. This whole chapter is a prophecy. I'm gonna read some of it. Chapter 12, verse 1. The burden of the word of the Lord for Israel, says the Lord, who stretcheth forth his heavens and laid the foundation of the earth, and formed the spirit of man within him. Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling unto all people round about, when they shall be in the siege, both Judah and against Jerusalem. And in that day I will make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all people, and they that burden themselves with it shall be cut into pieces, though all the people of the land of the earth be gathered against it. So this ain't happened yet. In that day, saith the Lord, I will smite every horse with astonishment, and his riders with madness, and I will open mine eyes upon the house of Judah, and I will smite every horse of the people with blindness, and the governors, the kings of Judah. Like I said, right here they all dead. So this is another witness to Ezekiel 37. Say, and the kings of Judah shall say in their hearts, the inhabitants of Jerusalem will be my strength, and the Lord of hosts their God. In that day will I make the kings of Judah, we're going to resurrect them, Judah like a heath of fire among the wood, like a torch of fire in the sheath. So the angels, these 7 angels are like fire. So this was the promise that he gave them before they died. They know that they was going to be resurrected, and they're going to be like the Lord of hosts. In that day will I make the kings of Judah like a heath of fire among the wood, like a torch of fire in the sheath, and they shall devour all the people round about, on the right hand and on the left. And Jerusalem shall be inhabited again in our own place, even in Jerusalem. And the Lord shall save the tents of Judah first, that's us, that the glory of the house of David and the inhabitants of Jerusalem do not magnify themselves against Judah. In that day, said the Lord, shall the Lord defend the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and he that is feeble among them at that day shall be as David, and the house of David shall be as God, that's that angel of the Lord, right? As the angel of the Lord before them. And it shall come to pass in that day that I will seek to destroy all the nations that come against Jerusalem, and I will pour out upon the house of David and upon the inhabitants of Jerusalem the spirit of grace and supplication, and they shall look upon me. This is the Lord of hosts talking. They got you thinking it's JC. And they shall look upon me whom they have pierced, denigrated, took him out the scriptures, and they shall mourn for him, David. Now here you go. Here go Josiah right here. As one mourneth for his only son, and shall be in bitterness for him, as one that is in bitterness for his firstborn. In that day there shall be a great mourning in Jerusalem, as the mourning and Hemagog, that's at Megiddo, in the valley of Megiddo. That's what I just read. And they mourned for Josiah when he passed away, because he was such a righteous king. But except they're gonna be mourning for David, because they're gonna see David back. They resurrected David back. They're gonna mourn just like they did what I just read. That's what it's referring to. But like I said, who know that? So anyway, it says, let me get it. Yeah, so I'll read that again. It says, I'm in first book of Ezra. It says, take me away from the battle, for I am very sick. And his servants immediately took him out of the fray, and he got into his second chariot and was taken back to Jerusalem, and he departed this life and was buried in the tomb of his forefathers. And they grieved. This is what Zechariah is referring to. And they grieved for Josiah all over Judah. And Jeremiah the prophet lamented for Josiah and the principal men, and with the women. They have mourned him to this day. And it was ordained that it should be always be done throughout all the nation of Israel. This is recorded in the scrolls of the histories of the kings of Judah, of every one of the deeds of Josiah, and his splendor, and his understanding of the law of the Lord, and what he had done before. And these present deeds are told in the scrolls of the kings of Israel and Judah. That's what it's referring to. And the men of the nation took Jeconiah, the son of Josiah, and made him king, and succeeded Josiah's father. And when he was 23 years old, he reigned 3 months in Judah and Jerusalem. Then the king of Egypt deposed him from reigning in Jerusalem, and he assessed the nation 100 talents of silver and one talent of gold. And the king of Egypt appointed Joachim, his brother, right, king of Judah and Jerusalem. And Jehoiakim put the nobles in prison and seized his brother Zeresh and brought him back from Egypt. Jeconiah was 25 years old when he became king of Judah and Jerusalem, and he did that which was wrong in the sight of the Lord. And Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came against him and put him in chains of brass and took him to Babylon. And Nebuchadnezzar took some of the sacred dishes of the Lord and carried them off and set them up in his temple in Babylon. With stories about him and his uncleanness and his impious behavior are written in the Chronicles of the King. And Jeconiah's son became king in his stead, for Jehoiakim became king in his stead. For when he was made king, he was 18 years old, and he reigned 3 months, 10 days in Jerusalem, and did that which was wrong in the sight of the Lord. And a year later, Nebuchadnezzar sent and removed him to Babylon with the sacred dishes of the Lord, and appointed Zedekiah, king of Judah and Jerusalem. When Zedekiah was 21 years old, he reigned 11 years, and he did that which was wrong in the sight of the Lord, and he disregarded the words that were spoken by Jeremiah the prophet from the mouth of the Lord. He the one burnt the scroll that Jeremiah sent to him by Barak. Although King Nebuchadnezzar had made him swear by the name of the Lord, he broke his oath and rebelled, and he hardened his neck and his heart, and transgressed the laws of the Lord and the God of Israel. And the leaders of the people and the priests did many impious acts, and surpassed in lawlessness all the unclean acts of all the heathens, and polluted the temple of the Lord that had been consecrated in Jerusalem. And the God of their forefathers sent his messenger to call them back, and he would have spared them and his dwelling, but they mocked his messenger. And whenever the Lord spoke to them, they made sport of his prophets, until he grew angry with his people because of their ungodliness, and ordered the kings of the Chaldeans to be brought against them. These killed their young men with the sword around their holy temple, and did not spare youth or maiden, old man or child. He delivered them all into their hands, and all the sacred dishes of the Lord, great and small, in the chest of the Lord, and the royal treasure they took, and carried them off to Babylon. And they burned the house of the Lord, and tore down the walls of Jerusalem, and burned their towers, and completely ruined all their glories. And those who survived the sword he removed to Babylon, and they were his servants and those of his children, until the Persians began to reign, to fulfill what the Lord had said by the mouth of Jeremiah. Okay, until the land enjoyed its Sabbath. Here we go right here. It's the 49. Let's look at that. It says, until the land enjoyed its Sabbath. All the time of her desolation, she shall keep the Sabbath until the lapse of 70 years. So let's look at that. I'm in Daniel. A lot of people don't understand this, but it's made plain right here. So I'm in Daniel. Okay, and it says right here, chapter 9, I think it is. Chapter 9. Let me see. Okay. Now, let me see. Yeah, chapter 9, verse 20 says, and while I was speaking and praying and confessing my sins and the sins of my people Israel, and presenting my supplication before the Lord my God for the holy mountain of my God, yet while I was speaking in prayer, even the man Gabriel, whom I had seen in a vision at the beginning, being caused to fly swiftly, touched me about the time of the evening oblation. And he informed me and talked with me and said, "O Daniel, I am not come forth to kill these skill and understanding." Then 23, at the beginning, the same thing happening now. We don't understand it. 23, at the beginning of the supplication, the commandment came forth. I am come to show thee, for thou art greatly beloved. Therefore, understand the matter and consider the vision. So this how time is kept in heaven. It ain't changed. So 24, 70 weeks are determined upon thy people, upon the holy city, to finish the transgression and to make an end of sin and to make reconciliation for iniquity and to bring in everlasting righteousness and to seal up the vision and the prophecy and anoint the most holy. So what he says 70 weeks are determined upon the city, the people and the city. So what's 70 weeks? 70 times 7. You got a week of years. That's how they keep time. I told you 7 times 7, 49 years, and the 50th year is the Jubilee. So the reason they had to go to Babylon, like he just mentioned, in 70 years is because they weren't keeping this law. You get 70 Sabbath years, which is allowing the land to rest. The woman, the land is the female, and the laws that Moses gave them pertaining to the land was to allow it to rest every 7 years, and they got away from that. So for 490 years they didn't do that. So he brought Nebuchadnezzar to take them to Babylon to make up them 70 years, and at the same time the land would rest. And after those 70 years, he bring them back. And then he gave them additional 490 years to make it right, but they didn't. That's the understanding of that. Okay, so I'm in chapter 2 of in comments. Oh, chapter 1. Okay, I'm in chapter 2. Yeah, I'll read another chapter. Okay, it says, in the first year that Cyrus reigned over Persia, to fulfill what the Lord said by the mouth of Jeremiah. That's what I just told you, 70 years. Cyrus came right at the end of 7 years. In the first year, so right at the end, The self-same day that marked the 70 years, Cyrus showed up. So Most High don't change. So they say that 1619 to 2019 was the time 400 years. Well, 1619 gone. We still here. So ain't some of the dead calendar line. So anyway, it says, in the first year that Cyrus reigned over Persia, to fulfill what the Lord said by the mouth of Jeremiah, the Lord stirred up the heart of Cyrus, king of Persia, and he made a proclamation throughout all his kingdom and put it in writing, saying, so the Lord behind this. Right after 70 years, he put it on Cyrus' heart to make this proclamation. Say, thus speaks Cyrus, king of Persia, the Lord of Israel, the Lord Most High, has made me king of the world and directed me to build him a house in Jerusalem, in Judah. So if any one of you is of his people, his Lord be with him. Let him go up to Jerusalem in Judah and build the house of the Lord of Israel. He is the Lord who lives in Jerusalem. See that? Who lives in Jerusalem. Yahweh don't live in Jerusalem. Two different beings. See that? He lives, he talking to him. He is the Lord who lives in Jerusalem. So let a man's neighbor who live in each place help him with gold and silver, with presents, with horses and cattle, besides the other things added as vows for the temple of the Lord in Jerusalem. So, okay, let's keep going. Then the heads of the families of the tribe of Judah and the tribe of Benjamin arose, and the priests and the Levites, and all whose heart the Lord had stirred up to go to build a house in Jerusalem for the Lord. And their neighbors helped them with everything, with silver and gold, and with horses and cattle, and great many vows, and many whose hearts were stirred. So let's look at this right here, because this is a doozy right here. So I just showed you who the temple slaves are, that the Most High, they called them out. They bound to him, and he took them away from the other 11 tribes. They can't, they bound by the zeal that he gave them and everything to deal with everything he get them to do. They ain't got time to do nothing else. So with that in mind, he says, thus spoke Cyrus, king of Persia, the Lord of Israel, the Lord of Most High, has made me king of the world and directed me to build him a house in Jerusalem, in Judah, right? In Judah. So if any one of you of his people, his Lord be with him, let him go up to Jerusalem. So let's look at who we're talking about right here. Let his Lord be with him. They go to him, right? And let him go up into Jerusalem in Judah, build a house of the Lord of Israel. So who is this that's going to build a house? It's these Levites, right? He is the Lord who lives in Jerusalem. So let the man's neighbors, look at this, let the man's neighbor who live in each place help him with gold and silver, with presents, with horses and cattle, besides the other things added as vows for the temple of the Lord God. I'm not finished. So he says, then the heads of the families of the tribes of Judah and the tribe of Benjamin arose. Here you go. The priests and the Levites, this is who he's talking to, go up to build the house of the Lord. And all whose hearts the Lord has stirred up to go to build a house, that's the Levites, in Jerusalem for the Lord. And their neighbors helped them with everything, with silver and gold, and with horses and cattle, and great many vows, many whose hearts were stirred. And King Cyrus brought out the sacred dishes of the Lord, which Nebuchadnezzar had carried off from Jerusalem and deposited in the temple of his idols by Cyrus, king of Persia. But Cyrus, king of Persia, brought them out and delivered them to his treasurer Mithras, and they were turned over by him to Sheshbazzar, the governor of Judah. We know where that is. That's Zerubbabel. This was the number of them: 1,000 cups, gold cups, 1,000 silver cups, 29 silver censers, 30 gold bowls, 2,410 silver bowls, and 1,000 other dishes. So all the dishes, gold and silver, 5,469, were taken and carried back by Sheshbazzar, along with those who had been in captivity from Babylon to Jerusalem. But in the times of Artaxerxes, king of Persia, visited these enemies that David, David talked about enemies. Here they go. These are the people that this king of Assyria brought to the 10 tribes and replaced the 10 tribes with. Bethlehem, Midra, Tebal, Rehum, the recorder, Shimshah, the scribe, and the others associated with them living in Samaria. These are people that Nebuchadnezzar brought. King of Syria brought there. They're not Israelites. And other places wrote him the following letter against those who lived in Judah and Jerusalem. See that? To King Artaxerxes, our Lord, your servants, Rehum, the recorder, and Shimshah, and the scribe, and the other judges of their court in Co-Syria and Phoenicia, now be it known to our Lord the King that the Jews, the Israelites, who have come up to us from you, have reached Jerusalem and are rebuilding that rebellious and wicked city and repairing its bazaars and walls and laying the foundation of the temple. Now, if this city is rebuilt and its walls completed, they will not submit to paying tribute, but will even resist the kings. So let's look at this. So these Israelites, the Most High delivered them, right? He used Cyrus. Then he got all the people around, even the other 11 tribes, other Israelites, to help the priests and the Levites. He gave them everything they needed. But look at this. And then, but in the time of Artaxerxes, king of Persia, he goes to enemies. They came, but look where they at. They says, but in the times of Artaxerxes, king of Persia, Benam, Mithras, Tebal, Rehab, Recorder, Shimshah, the scribe, and the other associates with them, living in Samaria and other places, wrote to him in the following letter against those who lived in Judah and Jerusalem. To the king Artaxerxes, our Lord, your servant Rehoboam, the recorder, and Shimshah, the scribe, and the other judges. See that? They're the judges now. Go to judges. Judges in Israel. That was Israelites in the book of Judges. Now, these scribes, these people right here, these wicked ass people, the judges. Nothing new under the sun. Look where we at now. Who over us? Our enemies over us. The judges. They're the ones, the system, the judiciary system that we expecting them to do right by us. They're the judges. Same thing right here. See that? Okay. So it says, to paying tribute, but while even resist the kings. And since the matter of the temple is now underway, we think it right not to neglect such a matter, but to address our Lord, the King, so that if you approve, a search may be made in the records of your forefathers, for you will find in their chronicles what is written about them, and you will learn that this city was rebellious, troublesome to the kings and towns, and that the Jews were rebels and organizers of welfare in it from ancient times. That was why the city was laid waste. We now therefore inform you, Lord King, that if this city is rebuilt and its walls restored, you will no longer have a way to access Co-Syria or Phoenicia. So let's look at what's going on. Let it ferment. So you done cast Israel out the land. They was in Babylon for 7 years. Then the Most High turned it, just like he said he's gonna do in Isaiah 60. He says, "Rise and shine, for my light is on you." That's a prophecy getting ready to happen. So we see right here, the same thing happened when Cyrus came. They was in Babylon for 7 years. Then Cyrus came. The Most High raised upon Israel, the light shined on them. And then he gave them everything they needed. So this is the reason in first Ezra that he had the Mithra to come out with all the gold to give to these nut buckets. They the judges. They got to be redeemed. So Ezra had to come with all them with the resources to get it in to release their people, the ones that was left in the land. They got them bound up. So that's what the gold and the silver was for. Notice same thing happened in Egypt. The same gold they used it later on when they got and they built the temple with Solomon. With Solomon. See, nothing new under the sun. So let's keep going. So he says, I have read the letter which you have sent, and accordingly ordered such a search to be made, and it was found that this city from ancient times used to rebel against the king, and the people created revolts and wars in it, and that stern and powerful kings ruled in Jerusalem and took tribute from Syria and Phoenicia. Therefore, I now given orders to prevent these men from rebuilding the city, and to take measure that nothing further be done, that these wicked undertakings go no further to the annoyance of the kings. And when the message of King Artaxerxes was read, Rehum, Sheba, the scribe, and their associates proceeded in haste to Jerusalem with horsemen and a crowd of troops, and it began to hinder the builders. So the rebuilding of the temple in Jerusalem was suspended. This to cut off in Daniel. Messiah got cut off. It's Zerubbabel, suspended until the second year of the reign of Darius, king of Persia. Now, King Darius made a great banquet in all his subjects, in all his domestics, and all his nobles of Media and Persia, and all the viceroys and provincials and the district governors under his sway in 127 provinces from India to Ethiopia, and they ate and drank, and when they were satisfied, they went home. But Darius the king went to his bedroom and fell asleep, and then awoke. Then the three young men of his bodyguard, who kept guard over his person of the king, said one to another, let us each say what one thing is strongest. And Darius the king will give rich presents and great honor to one whose words seem the wisest, and have been dressed in purple, and drink from a gold plate, and sleep on a gold bed, and give him a chariot with gold bridles, and linen headdress, and a necklace around his neck. And because of his wisdom, he shall sit next to Darius and be called Darius' kinsman. Then they each wrote his own answer and put his seal on it, and put them under the pillow of King Darius, and said, when the king awakes, then they will give him the writings, and ones whose choice the king and the three princes of Persia judge the wisest shall be considered the victor in what he has written. First wrote, wine is strongest. The second wrote, the king is strongest. And the third wrote, woman are strongest, but truth prevails over everything. So when the king awoke, they took the writings and gave it to him, and he read it. Then he sent and summoned all his nobles of Persia and Media, and the governors and officers, and the magistrates and officials, and he took his seat in the council chamber. And what was written was read before them, and he said, summon the young men and let them show their reason. And they were summoned and came in, and they said to them, explain to us what you have written. So the first one, who had told the strength of wine, began to say, gentlemen, how supremely strong wine is. It leads the mind to all who drink it astray. It makes the mind of a king and the mind of a fatherless child alike, the mind of a menial and a free man, of a poor and of the rich. It turns every thought to mirth and merrymaking, and forgets all grief and death. It makes all hearts rich, and forgets kings and governors. It makes everybody talk in thousands. And when they drink, they forget to be friendly to friends and brothers, and very soon they draw their swords. And when they recover from their wine, they cannot remember what they have done. Gentlemen, Is not wine supremely strong, since it forces them to act so? And when he had said this, he stopped. Then the second, who had told of the king's might, began to speak. Gentlemen, are not men strongest because they control land and sea and all that is in them? But the king is supremely strong and is Lord and master of them, and every command he gives them, they obey. If he orders them to make war on one another, they do so. If he sends them out against the enemy, they go and surmount mountains, walls, and towers. They kill and are killed, but they do not disobey the king's command. And if they are victorious, they bring everything to the king, spoils they take, and all the rest. And those who do not go to war or fight, but till the soil again, when they sow and reap, bring it to the king, and they compel one another to pay taxes to the king. He is only one man, but if he orders them to kill, they kill. If he orders them to release, they release. If he orders them to strike down, they strike. If he orders them to lay waste, they lay waste. If he orders them to build, they build. If he orders them to cut down, they cut down. If he orders them to plant, they plant. So all his people and his troops obey him. Besides, he reclines at a table. He eats and drinks and sleeps, and they keep watch about him. And they cannot, any of them, go away or look after his own affairs or disobey him at all. Gentlemen, how can the king not be strongest when he is obeyed? And he stopped. Then the third, who had spoken of a woman and of truth, his name was Rubel, began to speak. Gentlemen, is it not king great? And are not men many? And is not wine or strong? Who is then that rules over them and masters them? Is it not woman? Woman have borne the king and all the people, who are lords of the sea and the land. From them they are sprung, and they brought them up to plant the vineyards from which the wine comes. They make men clothe, they make men splendor, and men cannot exist without women. Why, if men amass gold and silver and everything of beauty, and then see one woman remarkable for looks and beauty, they let all these things go and gape at her and stare at her and went with open mouths and would all rather have her than gold or silver or anything of beauty. A man will leave his own father who brought him up in his own country and be united with his wife. With his wife, he ends his days and remembers neither his father nor his mother nor his country. Hence, you must recognize that women rule over men. Do you not toil and labor and bring it all and give it to your wives? A man takes his sword and goes out on expeditions to rob and steal and to sail the seas and the rivers, and he faces the lion and walks into the darkness. And when he steals and robs and plunders, he brings it back to the woman he loves. So a man loves his wife better than his father or mother. Many have lost their heads completely for the sake of woman and become slaves for their sake. Many have perished or failed or sinned for the sake of women. Now, do you believe me? Is not the king great in his power? Do not all the lands fear even to touch him? Yet I have seen him with Agag, the king's concubine, the daughter of the noble Barchidas, sitting at the king's right hand and taking the crown from the king's head and putting it on her own. And she slaps the king with her left hand. At this, the king stares at her open mouth. If she smiles at him, he laughs. If she grew angry at him, he flatters her so that she might be reconciled to him again. Gentlemen, how can women not be mighty when they act like that? Then the king and the nobles looked at one another and began to speak about truth. Gentlemen, are not women mighty? The earth is vast, the heavens is high, the sun is swift in his course, for he circles about the heavens and hastens back to his own starting point in a single day. Is he not great who does these things. So truth is great and mightier than all the other things. The whole earth calls upon truth. The heavens blesses her. All his works quake and tremble. There is no wrongdoing with him. Wine is not upright. The king is not upright. Women are not upright. All the sons of men are not upright. And all these doings, all such things are not upright. There is no truth in them. And though their righteousness, they will perish. But truth endures and is strong forever and lives and reigns forever and ever. There is no partiality or preference with her, but she does what is right rather than all the wrong and wicked. All men approve her doing, and there is no injustice in her judgment. To her belong power and royal dignity and authority and majesty in all the ages. Blessed be the God of truth. And when he stopped speaking, all the people shouted and said, truth is great and supremely strong. Then the king said to him, this is Zerubbabel, ask whatever you please beyond this how he ended up back in Jerusalem. Ask whatever you please beyond what is written here. And when you give it to you, since you have been found the wisest, you should sit next to me and be called my kinsman. Then said, so what happened was the same thing with Joseph. Joseph was made second in charge. Mordecai was made second in charge. After Zerubbabel made this speech, he became second in charge. Ain't nothing new under the sun. He said, remember the vow that you made and the day you so he asked him what he want. Remember, he's out of the seed royal. He's out of Josiah's lineage. Remember the vow that you made, talking to Darius, the day you succeeded to your throne, to rebuild Jerusalem and send back all the dishes from Jerusalem which Cyrus set aside when he vowed to destroy Babylon, and he sent them back there, and you vowed to rebuild the house which the Edomites burned. The Edomites burned. And when Jerusalem had been laid waste by the Chaldeans, so now, Lord, the King, this is what I ask and request of you, and this is the priestly liberality to come from you. I beg you to carry out the vow that you vowed with your own lips to the King of heaven, that you would carry it out. Then Darius king got up and kissed him, and he wrote letters for him to all his managers and his magistrates and officers and governors to escort him in safely with all that were going up with him to rebuild Jerusalem. And he wrote letters to all the magistrates of Syria, Phoenicia, and to those in Lebanon to bring cedar timber from Lebanon to Jerusalem, that they should help him to rebuild the city. Okay, and he wrote in the interest of all the Jews who were going up from his kingdom to Judah to secure their freedom, that no noble or governor or magistrate or manager should forcibly enter their doors. So I want to shine a light right there before I keep going. I got a few more to read. So right here, this is the king right here that's riding on the ass, that's going back to Jerusalem, lowly upon the ass. Let's look at it. It says, so Darius wrote letters for him, right? And then he says, and he wrote in the interest of all the Israelites who were going up from his kingdom to Judah. So they're going from Persia back to Jerusalem to secure their freedom, that no noble or governor or magistrate or manager should forcibly enter their doors. So he wrote these letters for the king, riding on the ass, lowly upon the ass, on his way back to Jerusalem. That's Zerubbabel. That's in Zechariah 9:9. It's not Jesus Christ and all the bullshit they got in the New Testament. It says, and that all the country which they wrote to occupy, they should possess free from tribute, that the Edomites should give up the Jewish villages which they control. See that? This is what the goal was for. That the Edomites should give up the Jewish villages which they control, and that 20 talents a year should be given for the rebuilding of the temple until it was completed, and 10 talents a year besides to provide burnt offerings to be offered daily upon the altar, in accordance with the commands they had to offer 17, and that all who came up from Babylon, see that, who came up from Babylon to rebuild the city should have their freedom, they and their children and all the priests who came with them. So how they get their freedom? With the goal, they get redeemed, right? Same thing that got to happen here. He wrote, providing their expenses also and the priestly vestments in which they officiate. And he wrote that the Levites' expenses should be provided until the day when the house shall be finished and Jerusalem rebuilt. And he wrote that the lots of the land and the wages should be given to all who guard the city. And he sent back all the dishes from Babylon which Cyrus had set aside, and all that Cyrus had ordered done, he commanded them to do, and sent back to Jerusalem. And when the young man went out, he lifted up his face to heaven, this Jerubbaal, toward Jerusalem, and praised the King of heaven, saying, from you come victory, from you come wisdom, to you belongs glory. I am your servant. Blessed are you who have given me wisdom. Praise you, Lord, for my forefathers. And he took the letters, and he went to Babylon, and he reported to all his brothers, and they blessed the God of their fathers, because he had given them release and liberty to go up and rebuild Jerusalem and the temple, which he had called by his name, and they banquet with music and gladness for 7 days. So 6 days they had a banquet. On the 7th day they rested and they left, went back to Jerusalem. Like I said, that's Zerubbabel right there. That's riding on the ass. He didn't go back to Jerusalem in an Escalade. He went back on a donkey, back to Jerusalem, riding lowly upon the ass. Okay, so that was First Ezra. I read chapters 1 and 2, and I kind of connected the dots with the King James. Any comments? Everybody good?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so anybody got any comments, anything before we close out? Okay, so with that being said, let everybody know you can got the women's line tomorrow at 8 o'clock. So the men can come in through Clubhouse, through YouTube. So with that being said, I want to say shalom to everybody. I'll see you tomorrow at 8 o'clock.
Shalom.
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 Shalom.